Hey guys, welcome to another Grand Chase video. A few people have been asking me what to do after I reach level 85. That's a question that I honestly wanted to talk about myself, because people who are newcomer, I think nowadays would really struggle to understand what to do afterwards, because after you finish Conant's Collapse or reach level 85, there's just so much that opens up for you that it's really hard to guess what to do next. So this video is not going to be just focused for newcomers who want to know what to do after level 85. I also want to tackle on about the end game as well, because I feel like if I want to talk about this topic, why not just go all the way? And I know people also ask me about what to do for the end game of this game, so I feel like it would be worth tackling these two questions at the same time, the same video. So just a heads up, I think, oh my god, what was that voice crack? For the heads up, I think this video is going to be slightly longer than usual. If you're somebody more experienced and want to know something very specific, I will make sure to add timestamps for each topic in this video. So if you don't want to lose time listening to me talk about something you already know, you're more than welcome to check the timestamps instead, and hopefully that will be able to help you there. And before we start, I do just want to say that if you like these sort of videos and like to see more Grand Chase content in the future, you're more than welcome to leave a like, comment, subscribe, because we do Grand Chase content here on a weekly basis. If you have any doubts or questions as well about the game that you would like me to answer, you're more than welcome to leave them in the comments. Maybe if I see something that is worth mentioning, I'll make sure to make a video about it as well. And also, just a reminder that I have a new goal of 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I hope we can reach that goal in time, so I trust on your support just as much as you trust my support to explain what the hell to do after that. So without further ado, let's just start with the basics. You just reach level 85. Your character may look something like this, and say maybe around 700k, maybe 800k if you got a little lucky with some drops and other stuff. And you just finished Conant's Collapse. So once you finish all that, you see that you unlock a new level called Another World. And once you see this screen, you probably think to yourself, all right, this is where I need to go next. I unlock a new world, there's new stages in here, so definitely I should start with Siege of Tarokka. And I don't blame you if you thought about this, but unfortunately you're not right about this. Siege of Tarokka, it's not your next step at all. There's other things that you need to focus first that will not only make your character better, but it will also help out a lot with the end game content in itself. What is this first thing that I need to do? Well, that's actually pretty simple. The first thing you need to do when you reach level 85 is do your chaser mission. The chaser mission is something that you automatically get after you reach level 85, and it only requires you to get hero bullions. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I'm not sure how many it is. I think it's like between 50 and 70. But even then, that is a very easy item to obtain because there's just so many ways you can unlock this item. For example, you can get 3 hero bullions by just using 4 pieces of the Kazuyaji map that you usually get from just playing the levels randomly. A second way you can do it is through the hero dungeons by playing the Crucible, Sanctum Destruction, or Wizard's Labyrinth. But if you have somebody that can carry you or help you out that you know is really strong, you can also go to Angry Boss, because this level gives you about 30 to 36 hero coins. So if you can do this completely, it's very easy to just unlock the chaser mission. Now, why should you unlock the chaser mission? The best way I can describe to you what the chaser system is essentially an extra experience bar that you unlock for your character. Now, for every time you play with a character that is level 85, instead of that character getting experience points, that bar gives the experience points instead. I like to call this essentially the account level, and that's why you normally see people nowadays with higher levels in their account. As you can see here, for example, my level is 352, but that's not my character level, that's my account level, or should we say chaser level for that instance. And with every level you get, you'll be able to spend chase points on one of these buffs. These buffs can vary from either getting more attack, more defense, maybe MP upon starting a level, more skill damage, the attack damage you give to enemies, or maybe damage done to bosses. And you always get a new point every time you level up your chaser level. For starters, this may look a little bit slow, right? Because getting experience is not all that easy, right? For specifically when you're just starting the game. But trust me, the sooner you get the system, the better it gets for you. Because as you see later on, they're just going to require so much farm and grinding that while you're doing that, you're also improving your chaser level in the progress, which means by the time you say maybe got something very valuable, you also got enough chase points to spend on your chase system. This is something that I personally believe is your main priority, because trust me, I've seen people who doesn't have the chaser system unlocked because either they don't know or they just didn't care for the system. And that can sincerely hurt you later on in the game, because these buffs here are no joke, and when they're like maxed out, they can be like extremely valuable to your character. Now, for the second step, it might be also something a little difficult, but I'll try to explain why it's important. The second thing you're gonna do is level up your other characters. But Val, I just reached my first character at level 85. I don't want to do all over that again. Well, this is a very important rule in the game that it needs to be reminded. You can't just rely on one character in this game. Sure, you may like playing with somebody like Zero, but unfortunately in this game, it's better to farm when you have a lot of characters to be played than just relying on one character. For me, for instance, yes, I do have a very powerful Alice's if you know this channel, but I also have a powerful Aizen, a powerful Kalia, a good Liar, a good Sieg. You understand the point. Essentially, I have very useful characters that can help out in the farm section. When you have multiple characters strong enough to do things, this will improve your farm section a lot. Let's put a scenario here where maybe you need to farm for hero bullions for, say, the chaser mission. The one option you can go for is Wizard's Labyrinth. Now, levels like Wizard's Labyrinth can only be played once per character. You play with your main character, and then you realize that if you try to play it again, you won't be able to do that. While you can, the rewards will not come up again. And this is where playing with other characters come in play, because you will be able to get the rewards with that character. So you play this level 1 with Zero, get the rewards, change the character to, say, Ronan, for example, and then you play with that character, you still get the rewards, boom, change characters, hence repeat until maybe you did with all characters, if you're crazy enough for it. Obviously, it's just a scenario as well. This situation can be also very useful for experience farming that you can also do, and that's how people farm for experience in this game. They just pick a character, play the level, change characters after they're done, hence repeat until they did this like 23, 24 times. Now, the second thing is really important is because of hero collection, and this is probably the biggest reason why this is important. Because every time you play with a character and you unlock their jobs, you get buffs based on that character. For example, Alice's gives attack and vitality every time you unlock their jobs. Liar gives critical attack chance and attack. Army gives special attack and attack. Ryan gives vitality and back attack damage increase. Ronan gives special attack and special defense power. Also, getting them to level 85 also gives them bonus stats. For example, if you have one character level 85, you get more vitality. If you've got 3 characters, you get critical attack damage. If you do 5 characters, you get a critical chance. And then 10 characters, you get an experience bonus as well. And just to keep in mind that the stats you see here that you get from Hero Collection is not just for the character that you're playing with, it's for every character that you play with this game. So even if it is like a level 1 Sighard, for example, he will still get these bonus stats in his collection just because you've already done it before. And it helps these early characters develop faster to the end game section of the game. One also thing to be noted as well, getting these Chase Cordy collection is also very important because they also give stats based on whatever visual you collect. Depending on what you do, can really help you out getting some stats. For instance, Aizen gets either critical damage or critical chance, or maybe Lime as well can give critical chance. You know, every visual here not only is really cool to look at on these, but also gives a specific stats that also goes for the overall account. And if you don't know how to get these, essentially you need 300 of these little Chase Cordy fragments, and with these 300 Cordys you'll be able to go into the refinements, go to Chaser Cordy, and then you can select the set that you want, one piece at a time. It's pretty funny if you're going to think about this, because the way you unlock these sets is exactly the next point that I have here in my collection, and I will get to that now, I suppose. So the third thing as well, that what you need to do is the hero dungeons that I already mentioned itself. The Crucible gives you the red core, which is also known as Hellstorm. Sector Destruction gives you the purple one, which is just Hamus. Don't know how to pronounce that. And Wizard's Labyrinth give you the Grandiel core. All these 3 cores are very important for the next topic that I need to talk about, which is Berkas. I got really lucky that it opened by the time I was recording this. And the reason why it's important is because Berkas gives you the Iron Dragon armor set. what used to be the best equipment in the game. It's still a very reliable set to go for, even if it's not the best set in the game nowadays, at least until we get to the end game of the game, which at that point then other stuff's gonna happen afterwards. And you can get like a free equipment every time you're able to clear Berkas, so it's not all that difficult to get it. But the real fun here is doing the true Iron Dragon set, which what you need to do here is essentially get the Iron Dragon set of any kind, the Phantom Phoenix set as well, but you can get this through any of the hero dungeons. Wisdom's Labyrinth specifically gives accessories, so if you want like an equipment like helmet or weapon, you need to go for these two specifically. And also the 3 cores for the hero dungeons respectively, which is essentially playing these 3 levels 6 times. Not to mention needs also GP and hero bullions as well. So yeah, farming for this set specifically can be extremely beneficial for you. The problem really is here, it does take a little while, right? Specifically if you're playing with just one character in the list, but trust me, when you're able to get these sets as well, it will definitely help you out immensely. The next part that I need to talk about is ring and piercings. Now I know people think I'm going to talk about the Siege of Toroka because they have these earrings and they have these piercings, but we're not getting there yet. This is probably a little further in the video. There are other earrings and piercings you can also be getting for free. I put that free in many quotations. The Gnosis earring and the pair of Pershford earring. You cannot pay me to pronounce that name. But these 2 earrings are very important as well. Not as important now, but for early levels, they're very important to just break a leg if necessary. The Gnosis gives a random shield to the player at any time in the level, and the Pearl basically gives you super armor and increased attack at a set rate. The only problem with these earrings is that they are extremely random. Like they can activate at the most random moments in the game, and that kind of makes them very unreliable at some moments. But when they do activate, they are really helpful and will probably save your life a couple of times in some moments. Another way you can get an earring is through Land of Judgment that opens every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's actually another item that we'll talk about here in a second, but for those who don't know what this is essentially you fight this big guy over here. He doesn't die by any means, but depending on the amount of points you get after the level ends, you get rewards based on the amount of points you collected. When you get about 500 points, you get shards for the earring of Harkion. And this earring specifically is not good, if I can say. It's definitely not better than the Gnosis and the other one that I talk about. The one thing with this earring, however, is that it heals you at random moments. But unfortunately, this earring is like extremely filler. This is something that you should only use if you cannot buy either one of the ones that I mentioned before. And once you do, you should just replace this one like immediately. But the other reason why you should play Land of Judgment, and it's something I wanted to talk about later on, is the rings. Rings are something that is extremely rare in this game, and not a lot of areas get this ring. And you start getting fragments for this ring at only 900 points. It shouldn't be anything that bad. And once you get this Harkion ring, it's extremely essential because it helps you provide properties like attack and critical damage into your character. I'm not going to talk about properties here, but there is a topic if you want to know more about it. And even if you don't get properties that you think is pretty good, you can always just craft another one if you just farm for the materials of it. And if you're also feeling risky, you can also try Infinity Cloister, because this ring here is also really good. Stage 1 and specifically shouldn't be that bad if you maybe got stronger after getting Berkas, or if you're extremely lucky you can also get the Unkeepable Promise, which thus far is the best ring in the whole game, specifically the stage 3 version of this ring. So if you're extremely lucky to get that, then you got the best ring in the whole game as far as I know. But other than that, I only recommend this if you have maybe a higher attack level, because even stage 1 can be a little bit difficult. But if you can play Infinite Cloister, that's also something that it's worth mentioning. But this is something kind of more end game wise, so my personal recommendation is to first go for the Harkion ring because it's a lot easier. Now this one can be a questionable suggestion depending on the time you see this video, but Awakening is also something that is very good to increase your character's overall stats. The mission itself can be a little bit annoying to deal with, but once you do unlock the Awakening mission, you're essentially seeing pure stats gold. Not only just stats wise, but you also unlock new skills for your characters, which depending on the character can really help out a lot by just essentially unlock a 4th skill or a new chaser skill, which it's definitely the highlight of this entire thing. But also you unlock these memory cores that essentially give stats. I already talked about the core system, but essentially, for just a quick little sum up, for every one of these small little cores, they have specific stats that they can unlock. And if you have this red core here with you, which you can unlock in the abyssal path, you essentially can get new properties for that support core. So for example, if I click reset here, if I had any of these things, I could get either attack, defense, vitality, special defense, HP recovery, MP recovery, team resistance, or a new special attack that can either be better or the worst one that I have here. And if I like what I got, for instance, if I got special attack plus 800, for example, I could click apply, and now this support course gives 800 special attack instead of 240. Otherwise, if I got something like HP recovery, I could just either reset or retain, and then I would still keep my special attack intact here. It doesn't sound like you can get a lot of stats in here, but trust me, my Adele wasn't that strong before the awakening. I think she was at 230k, but now with the awakening system, she's at 283, which is a very good progress, if I can say so myself. Now obviously the one problem here is that there is some RNG here, and depending if you got unlucky with these properties or not, it can slow it down or maybe just waste time. But if you do get something very valuable here, you are guaranteed to get some massive stats increase here, which it's very, very appreciated. And overall, I think it's pretty easy to do. It's not something that personally is extremely draining. Like Abyssal Path, personally, I don't think it's the worst mission out there. It just takes a little time. If you find people that are willing to do Abyssal Path, which currently there's a lot of people doing this, it's very easy to get that awakening out of the way. Now, here is something that is very difficult for me to talk about. We're getting the part where it's personally gets annoying in the game, but let's talk about it in bits here. The next thing here that I need to talk is fix your properties. What I mean by this is best described as over here. Every equipment here has different properties. For example, here on my Adele pants, she got MP recovery, attack, critical attack chance, and HP recovery. These stats here are essentially your properties, and you can always access this list through this purple button right here. And you will see my least favorite screen in this entire game. Changing these equipments can be a very difficult task in itself because of the way that the game is built up. The way you change these properties is through this item called GP item property scrolls, and you can get these GP properties through event dungeons in the game. Now, what people notice is that property scrolls can drop depending on the difficulty of the level. King Slime Land, which is nowadays is an extremely easy event, has lower chance of getting property scrolls because it is a very simple mission. However, Angry Boss, who I would say personally is still the hardest event of all of them, has higher chance of dropping GP property scrolls than any of the other ones in here. It doesn't always mean you'll be able to get it, but it is essentially the best way to get these property scrolls. And when you do get these property scrolls, you're basically dealing with the gambling of this game. One of the many, if I can say. Essentially, the GP property scrolls, it's an item that basically resets all of this. So for instance, if I had a property here that I didn't like, for instance, this one has defense, vitality, GP, and special defense power, what I could do is essentially waste a property scroll, and it will essentially reset all of these properties, and it would essentially give me a new set of properties for the pants. It could drop defense and vitality again, because that's also possible. However, I could possibly maybe get critical damage, maybe special attack in the way, you know, something that can help me out, make this equipment better than it used to be before. Oh, but Fal, there's one property that I don't like that I would like to change. Well, there is an item called Single Property Scroll, which is an extremely rare item that only drops on one level in the game that I will talk about at the end of this video. Essentially, this item allows you to pick any of these properties right here, and once you click change, only that property that you selected will be changed. You can always rely on the Single Property Scrolls to help you just change one property that you didn't like. Just for the record, you can still get a very shitty property of it, but you know, the point is you can just change one instead of multiple. This system here is probably the most frustrating part here in the game, but unfortunately it's one of the things that will level up your characters immensely here. And if you really don't want to deal with this RNG too much, specifically if you have a Berkas set, what you could do is use the Berkas property select scroll that you can obtain through the battle pass. And essentially how this works is this item only works on True Dragon Armor set, and what you can do is essentially change any property you don't like, and then you can pick the property that we would like instead. So for example here, I chose HP recovery and I want special attack. So if I had a property scroll here, I would replace the HP recovery for the special attack, and that would enhance it much more further. If you can buy the battle pass, I would definitely recommend you use this item specifically. But overall, that's all for the properties. If you really need to know what the right properties are for this, it's attack, special attack, critical chance, and critical damage. These are the 4 ones you want to go for. MP recovery is very good for increasing total attack, but it's essentially also ruining your character, because even if it boosts you a lot, you're also not doing too much damage with it. It's not bad for you to get this, but it shouldn't be the property that you should put it like as a priority. If you have my case here, which is attack, MP recovery, and critical attack chance, maybe you should focus on removing that HP recovery first, and then when you get something better, in my case for instance special attack, I can then remove that MP recovery to focus on something else, say critical attack damage, that is also much better. Moving on to the next point, which it's one of my favorite points to talk about, which is cards. Now, cards are something that is really tricky to talk about specifically at the start of the game. If you're like somebody who just got to level 85, cards are something that you will equip for your equipment, and they essentially give you bonus stats as well, depending on what type of card that you give to that equipment. And every equipment also accepts specific cards. For example, if I want to equip a card that is for my helmet or my weapon, there's only cards here that is specifically designed for helmets. So for instance, these are the cards that I can use for helmets, and if I want something for gloves and weapons, then these are the cards that I can only equip for gloves and weapons. And for people who get to level 85, it's unfortunately a little bit difficult to talk what the best cards to go for are, because most of them are not end game reliable. There's only a few here and there that is very good to talk about and keep it. But if you just got to level 85 and you have cards, my recommendation here is essentially go for cards that are from the Archimedes set. These cards are the cards that will definitely help you out the most, and they are extremely reliable the majority of the time. Cards that I can say that are really good even for end game content is Dahila with 25% critical damage, Kronos with 765 special attack. This is a card that you'll probably be seeing a lot. Commander the Darkstaff with 24% critical attack damage, Golem for 430 attack, and Astaroth for 774 special attack. These cards are probably the ones that you've seen the most specifically for end game, and they can still break a leg to help you out on that. And even if you don't have stuff for Archimedes, some cards from Akubra can also kind of help out as well to get that out of the way. And the fun thing is with the cards is that depending on the mission you unlock, the missions in itself will give you free cards. For example, in Zeruel, if you do all the missions, the game will give you a free Kronos card, which already will be a massive boost for your weapons or equipment. Now, just a quick little tip: if you're not using True Dragon Iron set, you shouldn't equip the best cards into your equipments. And what I mean is, if you have something like this, the Arnasis Top, which in itself is not a bad set, but if you want to equip cards into this because you don't have the True Dragon Iron set and you think you need to get ready at it, don't use your best cards in here. The problem is with cards is that you can unequip these cards if you so need to, but these require socket gems, and socket gems are something that you will see a lot on endgame because you probably will need them immensely. The only way that I know you can get socket gems outside of events is also to the hero shop, as they require 4 coins. On the surface it doesn't look that bad, but for the endgame stuff you need like 12 of these. So essentially you need 48 coins to essentially remove a card, which it's really draining. If you are going to equip cards to equipments like these, it's better off if you have some of the more weaker cards from say Shenya or Elia levels, just to kind of help you out. And then when you have the True Dragon Iron set, that's when you will equip your cards from Archimedes or hell, Akubra if you have anything that can help you out. But what about the Vermesha or Civiland cards? Can I also equip those? You're more than welcome to do so, but just be aware that these are not going to help you out that much. Instead, what you could do with these cards is increase your card collection. So how card collection works is very similar to character collections, but it's with cards. Essentially, when you have a card that you don't want because you think it's bad, for example, any Bermesha cards here, like the Harpy Queen card that I have here, you can click it on register, and that will start filling this bar right here. Once you fill that bar, this card, quote unquote, level up. And when a card level up, it increases 1 point on your collection reward. Every time you get 5 levels into your collection, you get a specific buff as well that also goes for every character that you have. The first thing you get is defense, then you get attack, then vitality, then special attack, then MP recovery, then special defense, then critical chance, HP recovery, critical attack damage, and the last thing you get is chaser points, which it's essentially getting a free level to your chaser level. And after that, it basically just repeats itself all in all, every 5 levels you get essentially the same thing after the chaser point. So getting this collection is extremely important as well, and it's something that is very easy to do, specifically for cards that you don't need, and you probably have cards that you didn't even knew it were there. Friendly reminder that once you get a card that's a level 3, you cannot register anymore. The maximum of these cards you can get to is level 3, and after that you just cannot equip those at all. But instead what you could do is fuse cards that can either get something that you already don't have in your collection, or one of the very specific fuse only cards that it's very difficult to get and can take a little while. So even if you had the cards fully register, you can still use them to get new cards in the future. The next topic that I have here is a very questionable one, because it's also something I don't like to talk about a lot, and that is runes. Runes is something that you start unlocking after Shenya, and how these work is essentially very similar to games like Genshin Impact or Star Rail. But essentially, for those who don't play these games, essentially when you get maybe 2 or 3 of the same type, you get a specific boost for your character. For example here, if I have 3 of this recovery rune, my character get a 5% chance to recover HP when it hits. If I have 2 of the guard rune, at the start of the combat, all allies' defense increase. If you play Genshin, you know how this works. But the problem here is, for me, is that farming for runes is extremely unreliable nowadays. There isn't really like a good place to farm for runes all that much. There's obviously some areas here and there. As you can see here from my Alice's, she doesn't even have anything special here. I think the most special thing she has here is this 42% critical strike damage. That's kind of just it. If you look at the substats, I'm pretty sure, yeah, the substat's not all that good. The only thing she has there is attack. If you think about just going to levels and farm for this, it is an option you can do, obviously, if you want to focus on runes. Just be warned that you're probably going to be wasting a lot of your time, because the runes you normally get in this game is like extremely common and oftentimes not all that worth using it for the majority of the time. The best way you can farm for runes, as far as I know, is through the shop, where you can get 12 runes in this, which can basically go from level 1 to level 5 stones. Even then, you're dealing with an annoying RNG here that's not always to your favor, because getting tier 5 runes is extremely difficult. The second best way that I know of is Harrier. The more deeper you go into Harrier, that's all wrong, but you know what I mean, better the runes you can get are. But the problem is, even if you're at the last level of the game, you can still get like tier runes or tier 2, even though it says guaranteed tier 3, tier 4, or tier 5. You're not gonna get those, but guaranteed. The most you get is like maybe tier 3, tier 4, but like that tier 5, it's like extremely difficult to get. Like for instance, if you want to farm for maybe just a good rune by any means, that could be a little bit difficult here and there, but it's not impossible by any means, right? You can probably get into a good rune here and there. You see the green arrow that goes, hey, if you equip this one, your character stats are going to increase. And honestly, that should be how you should treat the runes, essentially. If you see that the arrow goes up, you should prioritize that one instead. But if you're one of those people that will farm for the best rune possible, for the best set, like you possibly can do in Genshin Impact, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but if you try to do that, we'll never see you again. Every drop rate in this game is very much against you, if I can say it personally, and for runes is literally no exception. I don't want to say just because drop rates and everything like that, but it's because there's no system to help you enhance your runes for the best way possible. The only thing you can do with runes is upgrade them and seal them, which basically allows you to move it to other characters, and you get the seal through cash, by the way. Those are the only things you can do. Like, ever since they added runes to the game, which it was like, I think 3 years ago, I don't recall, they never touch runes like ever again. This is a mechanic that I think personally is dead, and it needs to be touched in some way, shape, or form, because this is one of the systems that has a lot of potential to growth. And I can say this for myself, because if you have like good runes in your disposal, you can see like 20 to 30k extra total attack with this thing, and it's really good. But to get this, it's like extremely annoying to deal with. If you find a good rune, then like hooray, good for you. But personally, I say don't stress trying to farm for runes. These things comes naturally, and if you somehow get a good rune, like congratulations, you've been blessed. Like the best way I can also say, you don't farm for runes, the runes choose you. Like that's how it is. Okay, so after finally all of that mess to get to this point, what do I do now? Congratulations, you're now at the end game of the game. I would shake your hand if I could, but I cannot. My voice is literally dying. So now after you get to this point where everything that we talk about, you can now finally start Siege of Taroka. For Siege of Taroka, what you'd be going for mainly is the Dimensional Guardian Earring. And for Temple of Time, what you'll be going for is for the Dimensional Guardian Piercing. These two items together will boost up your attack power a lot, and once you get the both of them, you're seeing a bonus of 1.98% critical attack chance and 20% critical attack damage respectively. It's a massive bonus once you manage to get these two items together. The way you can get these is by pure luck. If you manage to drop one, you can either get this version of the item or the basic form of this, or you can also craft them in your hero shop. Right here on earrings, you can see that you can craft these two respectively and also create the epic version of this item. My personal suggestion to get these is try to craft these in one go, because this also avoids the problem of if you by any chance manages to drop a version of this, because you then just waste resources, and that's kind of a problem. So for example, you have 80 fragments into your inventory. You then use 30 to create the earring, and then afterwards you use the other 50 to create the rare version of the earring, because then you have it the best version into your hands. Now obviously, if I can say, focus on the earring first and then go for the piercing, because the piercing unfortunately require more of the fragments, and that can be very annoying to farm for. While you're farming for the fragments, you also have a chance to maybe get the title of Siege of Taroka and Temple of Time respectively. They're not too shabby, and they can actually help you a lot because they have very good stats that can help you out through your grind section. Obviously, Temple of Time is better than Siege of Taroka, but if you have Siege of Taroka first, it's not all that bad to have it. It can definitely break a leg if you get it, and it does increase a lot of your stats either way, so for starters, it's not all that bad. Then when you have both epic versions of the Earring and Piercing is where you decide to go to the Great Explosion of Konat. And here is where you get the upgraded version of the Earrings and Piercing you already have. Or you get another Earring and Piercing that, while it's not better, it still can very much break a leg, and it's better than anything else that you probably have for other characters, for example. Specifically this purple one, because they also have a set of 3% critical attack chance and 30% critical attack damage if you have both of them in your hand. But the main reason why you also should is because you're going to be able to get dimension cores in here, and those you use to create the relic version of the Earring and Piercing you've been farming for before, which their stat is also a kind of an upgraded version of the one you have before, so it's definitely valuable to go for this one as well. And it's also a relic, which means that you also get 4 properties instead of just 3, which is really good to have. Afterwards, it's kind of debatable what you could do, but I also recommend investing in Harrier. Harrier has one of the best titles that you can get in the game currently, which is the Harrier Hennox Core and Harrier Revival. In order for you to get these titles, you have to play through the champion mode, which can be a little bit draining and a little annoying to deal with, but these titles can come up very nicely. And also, while you're doing the champion mode, you're also getting cards, possibly a new pet as well, which they're not all that good in comparison to other pets, but they do very much break a leg, which is pretty nice. And also you have a chance of getting a tier 5 rune, which, like I mentioned before, is very unlikely, but you still have a chance to do so anyway. For the main part here, you should be doing these 2 levels respectively for the titles, mainly because they have a dungeon buff that is applied to everyone in the room. Well, this one has a 5% damage for every enemy, while also increasing their critical attack chance for 145 for everybody in the party member. And Hennox title gives essentially just 10% instead of 5%. Otherwise, it's the exact same thing. And if 2 people are using these 2 titles together, they do stack. So essentially what you see here is 50% damage if the 2 people had this title, and 3% crit chance, which is really good. So now let's say you have everything that I've already talked before. You got the earrings, you got the piercing, you got the ring, you got Berkas, you have awakening, you have cards, you got the runes, you managed to get the titles. Either one of them that I mentioned before is fine. What the hell do I do next? So after all of that, you're now into the real end game of the game. You thought you were over with the end game? Nah, we're just starting the end game now, because oh my god, it's hurting to talk, honestly. With everything that you unlocked, you are now able to access the Void. And here is where you get the ancient equipment in the game, which currently is the best equipment in the game. Void can be extremely intimidating at first, and depending on what level you're going for, it can kind of be a little bit of a different story to go for. So my recommendation is, if you're not strong enough to deal with void, don't feel pressure to do something like this. Just go for the runes that you know you can enter. If you have like around 250k as it is recommended there, you probably can go to runes that are like 1F. Once you get to say 300 or 400k at one point, you probably will be ready for floor 2, and then afterwards at 600k or 700k, when you're like at the peak, is when you'll be able to finally get that floor 3 that has the best rewards and all that stuff. Then you could probably go for floor 4 as well. But other than that, here's where you probably spend most of your time with your characters. And obviously, depending on what equipment you need to go through a specific void level. For example, if you want the weapon, it's the void invasion. Helmet, upper armor, and pants is to the void taint, and gloves, boots, and pants are in the void nightmare, which is the last one that we have here, which by the time of this recording is the ones that we have. I'm not sure if later on we'll get void 4. After everything, this is where you're probably going to be spending most of your time on, because it's essentially the best equipment in the game, very valuable for you to go for, specifically at the end game content here. And after all of that, there isn't much you can do once you get the void equipment. The best thing you can do personally is go to Tower Disappearance to enhance all your equipment's properties, because Tower Disappearance, as I mentioned before when I was talking about properties, is the only level that drops the single property scrolls, and that is the level that everybody goes for. Realistically, this one you can probably put it before at some point, because essentially what you need for this at first is like 300k just to do enough for possibly getting the single property scroll. And then if you're going for something like the full thing of the level, then it's like 600k, 700k. It can be debatable whether this is like the last thing to do or the somewhere in between the middle area you need to do. But to me, ultimately, it can be suited well as the last one, because at the end of the day, you will need to use that to enhance your equipment. So it would make sense after you get all your void equipment out of it. Farming in Tower Disappearance is extremely annoying and frustrating, because the item specifically that you need has a very low chance to drop, while everything else is like extremely likely to drop. Hell, they even drop like champion tickets, like literally anything can drop from there. So yeah, that's everything you can do after you reach level 85. You obviously don't need to follow my list in order. If you think a few things need to change here and there, you're obviously welcome to follow your own order of everything. But to me, that's the way I would do it now if I would like restart the game all over again. And obviously there's a thing here and there that I skipped, because like there's just so much to talk about. For instance, the right pet, maybe the right Cordy set, reinforcements as well, which is something that is extremely important that I completely forgot to talk about it. But you know, ultimately, I think I kind of gave a little summarize of the things that needs to be equipped into your character and everything that you can do afterwards. Again, if I forgot something, I apologize, because there's just so much to talk about this game and it's extremely daring and my throat is like already hurting a lot. So yeah, like I said before, if you enjoyed this video and like to see more Grand Chase in the future, you're more than welcome to leave a like, comment, subscribe, because we do Grand Chase here on a weekly basis. So yeah, we're just gonna leave it here because I've been recording for an hour and 35 minutes and I think I've already talked enough. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day today. Stay awesome, stay safe, have a great farm section today, and we see each other next time. Peace.